I've grown up in this community all my life. I've overcome many hurdles: poverty, domestic violence, and living with a mother who suffered from the disease of addiction. You see, I've lost my mother to the disease, my former husband, and many friends. This is the place where we come to mourn those that we've lost. And this is the place for those who are not in recovery may find themselves in an early grave, leaving behind them their mothers, their fathers, their sons, their daughters, their friends, those who love them because of the disease of addiction. Today, I will be going on a journey to find out what our communities are doing to combat the issue of substance abuse. To best understand this issue, I wanted to start off with the individuals that see this most.
Well, I started an open addiction support group here at Freedom Church.
We have to start taking a proactive stance in making sure that this does not continue.
So, I started with Sheriff Mike Nielsen of Boone County Jail located in Lebanon, Indiana. I wanted to learn what the protectors of our communities were doing to fight the war on addiction. So, how did you become so passionate about helping people? Many outsiders know of Boone County as one of the safest places to live, but what many insiders say is a completely different story.
Yeah, so we are at epidemic levels here in Lebanon, Indiana, and Boone County, Indiana, when it comes to opiate usage. I am seeing kids from the ages of 14 all the way up to 30 years old die from opiate overdoses. And as the sheriff of this county, that the community is coming together and we're working on every solution that we can to try to help some of those overdoses from occurring and some of these addiction problems that are out there today.
Mike told me many different tactics that he and his team use to help leave those battling with substance abuse hope. But one thing that I didn't know about that stood out was Vivitrol.
They do everything they can to try to get help. And sometimes because of financial reasons, they can't afford the help or insurance doesn't pay for what they need. We're trying to step in and kind of be that intermediary. And what Vivitrol is Vivitrol has been around for years to fight alcoholism. And what Vivitrol has been known now to do is to also fight the effects of opiate. And it gives them the opportunity so they don't feel the high, number one, but also those urges when they leave our facility that they have to immediately go out and use again, those are cut down dramatically. And that's proof that Vivitrol does that.
One thing that is a common knowledge tool to fighting substance abuse addiction is connection. It was relieving to know how the sheriff approached all of his inmates with the intent to establish just that.
I go back there and I listen, and I truly listen to these people. And that's why over the last 18 months, 24 months since I've been sheriff, they just feel like this is the last stop for them.
During our conversation, I talked with Mike about how lucky people here actually were. How some will find the grave before they find their way inside a cell block. Everyone here was actually here with a second chance at life. And with an amazing new tool, Mike told me how many officers nationwide were able to save lives of those outside of jail.
I can tell you that officer safety is critical to me. And sometimes they put us in a position where we have to put hands on them, we have to arrest them, we have to do what we need to do because our ultimate goal is to get our officers home safe. So, that's the key. And we've also experienced a total different side of that where you go to an overdose call or somebody that's using these drugs and they have overdosed, and now all of a sudden we have to change our role from being a protector to being a person that's probably going to save this person's life. And the way we do that is by the use of Narcan. And I was real excited about that program because we were going to all these calls, seeing these young people die in front of us, and we as law enforcement that get there first before fire and EMS couldn't do a darn thing. Well, what Narcan does is allows us the opportunity to have a drug with us that we can administer in the nasal passages that reverses the effects of that opiate drug. And I have seen kids come out of, and I call them kids, but I have seen 15, 16, 20-year-olds come out of overdoses by administering this drug in about 30 seconds to 60 seconds, and they're just totally normal.
The fact that we as a people can bring people overdosing back to life with things like Narcan is impressive. But what wasn't so impressive is what Mike had to say next.
I think the majority of the people back in my facility now, and I have 175 inmates back there today, probably 80% of them are here because of probation violation. And probably 70% of the probation violation charges are because of drug usage and addiction. So if we can work towards solving that problem, I'd like to see our population down to nothing back there, right? So I think that's coming. We'll always have people back there, people that make mistakes. And unfortunately, the people that we have back there, we've got some bad people, but we got really good people that's just made bad mistakes in their lives.
Thanks to Mike and the fine gentlemen of Boone County Jail, I was able to continue my investigation a little closer to the bars. I was able to speak with the Boone County local inmate, Mindy, about her experiences with substance abuse, how she got here in the first place, and how she plans on fighting her way back to the other side of this issue.
It didn't start out. It started out with Adderall.
Methamphetamine. It seemed as if this was possibly one of the key drugs impacting this community the most.
I was falling asleep at work, so they started me out on Adderall. And for 2 years, that worked. And then when it stopped working, someone said, well, I'll trade you some Adderall for some meth. And that's how that started. And I realized I could spend $25 a week on that, and it would last me just as long.
$20? No wonder these drugs are so easy to get access to.
There was times where if I didn't have it, I didn't get out of bed.
I hear that from women who say, that's the first thing I think about when I get up is how am I going to use?
Yep. Yeah. And I didn't want to leave the house unless I had something.
One thing that came as a surprise to me was her mentality going down this road of addiction.
Yes, that you're invincible. You don't realize how bad you look. I've seen pictures now of myself, and I was way too skinny, and I didn't have any color to me. For my age and with having 4 kids, I was way too sickly looking. I never slept, or when I did sleep, I'd sleep for like 24 hours straight and then be up for a week.
Once you're hooked, you will travel almost anywhere to get your fix. But that is something you could almost expect from those in such situations. As I continued to talk to Mindy about the solutions to fighting the war on addiction, her perspective was a new one.
I'm choosing to go live with my mother for a few months to get my recovery started and strong before I go back into a mother and wife scenario. But for a lot of us, I don't want to leave town.
It's home.
Yeah. And I mean, for the women, you want to be close to your kids, your husbands.
Yes.
Whether or not you're ready to step back into that role or not is another story, but you still want to be close. If there was a halfway house here in town, I would probably be going to it just to get my footing on my recovery.
At this point, it's a no-brainer. Since Boone County wasn't able to recognize the problem of substance abuse as a major issue, it has become one of its biggest downfalls for people like Mindy that fell into this terrible trap. She really didn't have all the resources to get out.
Recovery is great. You feel so much better. It's a building. You tear yourself down while you use. You've got to rebuild your self-esteem. Your brain function is completely destroyed, and you have to slowly rebuild that and work back into loving yourself. Because when you're using, you're committing suicide slowly.
Yes, you are.
And as we get sober and start to feel better about ourselves, it's a step.
It was great to leave Mindy on a positive note. She has decided to choose to make recovery her lifestyle. And with only a short period of time before she's released, she's that much closer to restarting her new life. To conclude my journey on seeing the different communities and what they're doing to combat the war on addiction, I wanted to make a stop at a local church in Boone County and talk to a young man who is taking this war on addiction seriously and placing himself on the front lines. Many locals know him as the guy with that billboard that saves lives, and others know him as Scott Mitchell. So, Scott, what is it that you like about Freedom Church?
Freedom Church has everything that I've been looking for in life. I never really had a home church. And once I came here, I found this church I made this my home church because it was just like everything all the questions I had in recovery. And it was just like everything was answered because of the way that they explain God and how He works in your life.
And you feel like that's a pretty important part of your recovery?
Absolutely. Yeah. God's the only reason why I'm here today, and so now I've really found a place where I can learn how to connect with Him in a better way.
And probably the part about non-judging is pretty powerful.
Absolutely. Yeah, most churches are just kind of like, might turn their head to a drug addict. This church says, hey, come on in.
So bring your tattoos.
Bring your tattoos.
Scott Mitchell is a recovery activist, and how he fell into that role was just like many others who fall into that role. They have either dealt with someone in their family that has used, or they have used themselves. What made you decide that you had enough?
12 years of being sick and tired of being sick and tired.
What happens when you walk out of those doors?
I don't know. There's just a perfect example of a guy. I was in there with him. He works out every day, really getting into his recovery. As soon as he hit the streets, it's just life throws a wrench in his thing, I guess, or hanging out with the bad people. The other thing is there's very little resources here for people in recovery. There's a few stuff, but there's just not a lot. So I think that people just get lost, and the only way they know how to cope with that is just to go back to, use it. Again, not enough programs here in Boone County. This problem seems to be more real with the more people I talk to. But what Scott had to tell me next put a smile on my face. Well, I started an open addiction support group here at Freedom Church. Also started a PAL group, which PAL is Parents of Addicted Loved Ones, where a parent or a boyfriend, girlfriend of a loved one struggling can come and get support, learn more about addiction. We just need to come together as a community and just, do as much as we can for people that are struggling. If your family member has cancer, you're going to do absolutely everything and do everything in your power to support them and to lift them up. Well, same thing with these addicts. We have to do everything that we can to lift them up and keep them excited about recovery. We got to weed out all the bad people that are still here in our town trying to, bring these addicts back to their level. Wow. At the end of my journey, it was great to see that there were individuals fighting the good fight against addiction after all. Even though there is an obvious need for more programs to help these individuals find their road to a happy and healthy recovery, it was relieving to see that they were at a solid start. A start that could fix their community and hopefully spread to other communities around them. There's no telling when or if this war on addiction will be a success, but there definitely is a strong force growing against it every day. Now, I'm on a journey to find answers and to discover ways our community and public authority can come together and fix important issues that I care about.